City of Ojai Arts Commission. And it is our regular meeting, and we'll start with a roll call, if you would, please.
Commissioner Tosher?
Here.
Commissioner Crowner?
Here.
Commissioner Byrne?
Here.
Commissioner Balderman?
Here.
Commissioner Golden?
Here.
Vice Chair Harmon?
Here.
And Chair Addison.
Here.
Thank you.
And let us go forward now with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Ms. Tosher, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Oh, thank you.
An awesome honor.
It's all yours.
I pledge
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God.
Indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
What was the rhythm of that before it was
don't know.
changed?
I know, that's
like in
what I
the
was trying to get.
40s. How did they say that?
Every word is heard. Okay.
All right. Public comment. There is no one in the audience, but I'm sure that there are thousands watching on television. And if any of them wish to contact us, feel
Don't.
free to think again.
No.
All right.
Run over right now and make the meeting.
Yeah, that's right. We're going to be here for at least another half an hour, so don't hesitate. Okay,
like
approval
this.
of minutes is next on the agenda. We have the minutes for the November 16th, January 2nd, and January 18th meetings of the commission. Are there any emendations or changes that anyone wishes to suggest? Commissioner Golden, I see you nodding your head.
On the January 2nd, 2018 minutes, there are two corrections.
I wasn't absent.
Under 3B,
The January 2nd meeting, this was the special meeting for the inn,
Oh.
not,
Yes.
not the
Okay, was it?
regular
Oh, okay.
18th.
Yes,
All
are you
right.
there?
yes.
Under 3B, the very last line, I think it's important that it says it was also noted that the INS project must be located near the public right-of-way. It's not an option.
Got it.
Thank you. And then, would anyone have a problem if I worked with James on writing the motion, rewriting the motion, because it's written in a way that I think could cause problems if we ever went back to it? And it's, instead of sitting here and doing that, could I just work with him and bring it back?
Why don't you do it and bring it back at the next meeting?
Is that okay, James? You and I will work on it.
Everyone
We'll
okay
bring it
with
back
that?
for approval then.
It was
Yes,
the motion
that
to
motion.
accept the Lynn's.
Yeah, and there's just,
Yeah.
there's some wording there
Okay,
that's a little
let's,
problematic.
if you'll work on that and then
Yeah,
bring it back
I'd
to
be
the
happy
next
to work
meeting.
with James on that. It shouldn't
Got it.
take, I already wrote out some ideas.
You've met?
Hmm?
You've met? You have met James?
Yes.
We'll move on if we may. Any objections to the emendations suggested by Commissioner Golden? Hearing none, we'll accept
No,
those.
no, I also have for
There's more.
January 18th.
Oh, well, please.
Okay, and on January 18th, let me find out. Here it is. Under, they're all A, B, C, so it's G. That is really inaccurate, and I'd like to also work with James on clarifying what it was that we said. For example, Libby Park Master Plan Sculpture Park is not a public art project, so it shouldn't be listed there as
Where are we?
something that we're looking at.
G.
G. It's second from
Page
the
2 of
bottom on
3.
page 2 of 3.
Right.
And can I work with James on that too?
Of course.
Okay. And then the last one is disappeared, thank goodness. All right, that's all.
Any objections? Okay, so moved. Let us move
So
on
you,
now.
so if you want to, Michael, you could approve the November 16th because there are no corrections
Well,
there.
let's do that.
Okay.
Any objections to the November 16th minutes?
No.
Then
No.
we'll consider them approved. Now, let's move on the 2018 meeting calendar. There's really only one reason I put this on the agenda for this evening, and that is that the scheduled meeting is the evening before the production of Macbeth is due to open. And Commissioner Crowner and I will both be heavily absorbed in that, and I wondered if the commission would be willing to postpone the March meeting until the 22nd.
That's a what? What day is
That's
that?
a Tuesday, Thursday, rather.
So it's just a week later? or a week
It's
before?
It's 2 weeks
weeks
later.
later.
So it'd be 6 weeks.
Is the room available?
No, it's a week later.
Yeah,
It's a week later, and the room is available.
room is available.
Okay. March
So there'd
what?
be 6
March
weeks in
22nd.
between our,
I'm just looking at my calendar so I can change it.
I can't make it that
I can,
You can or can't?
I can.
You can, okay.
I don't want to miss another meeting.
and both the originally scheduled date, Michael, and the following week are off for you? Are not good for
Well,
you?
the 15th was the originally scheduled date, and the 22nd is the
1 week
week
later.
after that, is 1 week later.
I was in the wrong month.
22nd is okay.
Okay.
The 22nd is okay?
22nd is okay. All right? I would like to move then that we shift the March meeting to the 22nd of March.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Crowner. Any comments or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Done. Okay, let's move on to the Art Grants Committee. And that, by the way, James, the chair of grants is, Marcy, are you chair of the grant committee now? Yes, you are, correct.
Yes, thank you.
This is the
Lot.
most current, up-to-date list of grant recipients, including
Oh, good for our,
this year.
for our,
Oh,
Good, excellent.
three-hole punch.
Oh,
Good.
You know, I'll punch on after this.
Thank
I
you.
can touch my own.
I think we can punch it in.
You must feel awful about
That's wonderful.
Aren't you a lawyer?
Yes.
This is
Okay,
fabulous.
would you continue your
Goes
report,
under the
please?
tab that says
All right,
Marcy, you have the floor.
Yes.
grants.
it's interesting to look at the history of the grants, and we started out years ago, 2012, 15,000, and then it increased steadily. One year, 2016, we had 46,000. This year, 55,000, but even at that, the average the average grants awarded were only 44% of what was requested. So we're obviously not in a place where we can even meet all of the requests.
Are we saying yes to too many organizations?
It depends.
Well, you know, if you look at this, there were like 3 that didn't get anything. So to me, that indicates that,
That's because they weren't qualified. Right?
Mm-hmm.
No,
Yeah.
Some of them did.
some of them were. The
Yeah, yeah,
Independence
they
Day wasn't qualified.
yeah, and,
Or something like that.
But I think it's a fact that because we have managed to publicize the availability of grants pretty effectively, we get lots of applicants.
Yeah.
And even though the council has been strongly supportive of this program and has, as you noted, continued to increase the amount that we have available, we just can't meet the demand, and that's just unfortunately a fact of life.
But do note that in 2017, 100% of the grants were funded 100%. And that's because only 6 applicants came
Yeah.
in. And that happens as a result of the limitation imposed in that you can only apply 3 years in a row, and then you have to not apply again.
Right.
Because it's supposed to be a startup grant. So it's interesting. Also in 2015, 70% were funded. You know, when those years hit,
Yeah.
we don't get so many, like next year may be a year we don't get a lot. You just never
And
know.
it depends whether there are new artists who come into
There
town
you
and are
go.
applying, and
There you go.
there are a lot of variables. Yeah.
So
I
maybe,
think we're doing a great job.
yeah, maybe at the outset, though, we need to explain that, there are a variety of factors that would determine the amounts awarded, and one of them is how many applicants there are.
Sure.
I think that is,
I
and
think
it's
we
in
make
there.
it pretty
It's-
clear.
It's,
Yeah.
if, now that you're the chair, I'm sure you'll read all the documents that were created, and all that's explained in there.
Okay, anything else about the grants program at this point?
And you can change it.
No.
Okay. Then we will move on to budget discussions, and this is unfortunately going to be rather truncated because the city council at their meeting their last meeting, when they were going to decide on budget adjustments, which would have affected us seriously in terms of the sliding rack for the art collection and the amount of money that we need to fully fund 5 artist-student mentors. Their discussion of tiny houses apparently precluded their getting to this item on their agenda, so it's postponed until their next meeting. So we're essentially in a holding pattern until they make those decisions. Now, it is true that we could sort of start tapping other funds to provide for these artist mentor program, to bring that up to the 5,000 we need. But I would suggest that we hold off until after their March decision. That will still give us plenty of time to advertise the artist student mentor program and get applicants for the summer. Is everybody okay with that?
Yes.
Okay. James, do you have anything you want to add in terms of budget at this point?
No, just that it's scheduled to go on February 27th. So it's always possible it gets, bumped again, but we should have an answer by the next meeting.
Yeah, by our next meeting.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
Are we allowed to see a preliminary budget that would have line items for Arts Commission?
So so there's 2 different documents. There's the budget document that has all the line items, but for what they're doing for the mid-year is just coming back with additional requests. So we can send a copy of that out. It should be available in the next couple of days, so I could send it out, but it doesn't actually have line items. It's just a report, and it says, here's the requests we've received in the last 6 months. So I can send that out.
So they're not looking to deduct from the.
No.
line items.
No.
This-
They're looking to supplement.
This is specifically, it's a status report, especially after the fire. So it's kind of where we're at, would we need to make any cuts? We're not anticipating that at this time. So it's more than that. And then the second part is requests that have come in that we want council to consider.
But I think we do need to recognize that because of the fire, there are significant additional expenses to the city. So I don't frankly have very high expectations. I think we may, at our next meeting, be looking at the reduced budget that we're currently confronting, and as a consequence, having to make some adjustments, because as we discussed before, if we can't get that additional sliding rack, then there's no point in further art acquisitions, and perhaps that budgeted amount of money could be used to supplement the artist-student mentor program. So those are the options that we'll be looking at when we discuss what the realities are at our next meeting.
And just to add to what you're saying, that bed tax was affected by
Oh,
the fires as
seriously,
well.
yeah.
And so it's not just more expenses, but it's also the,
Less income for the
Takings,
city.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
so we could be
Yeah.
in the line of fire.
Yep. All right, so that really covers the Artist Mentor Program as well. I think we can move on.
Let me ask a question.
Yes.
How do you harvest these mentors in the past? I mean, do you just ask them personally, or they're?
No, we advertise, we send out announcements, and we
Okay.
announce in the paper and on social media.
Not yet.
Not yet, no, we'll do that after the March meeting, and we'll probably have a deadline of the end of April for artists to apply, and we'll choose them, and then go after the students and be ready to start.
And do you still do the workshop for the app?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
sure,
okay.
yeah, we'll go through the whole process.
Okay.
Okay, public art, and this is, I think, probably going to be our major discussion this evening, so
But fun,
if you would lead the way, please.
I would. And if I don't have my notes, I'm gonna commit Harry Carey here, hang on. Okay, where did if I left it on the dining room table, I'll be right back.
Bobby, but could you sing a song for us while we're waiting?
You would all leave a meeting.
Oh, we would.
I think I did, I left it on the dining room, can't believe I did that. Yeah, I left my, so I'm gonna have to shoot from the hip on this. This is really to go to the Public Art Project, that we don't have a report for the Public Art Committee, there's no news. Next meeting, we might have some news. So we're just gonna go right on to Public Art Project. And, James, did you pass out the worksheet to everybody?
This?
No, this, that I sent you.
Oh, I don't think I have that.
Yeah, I emailed this for you to have ready.
Okay. Today?
Yeah.
Okay.
To pass out. It's really critical. I can't proceed without it. I really can't.
I'll grab it. I'll be back in a
Do you want to go to City Gallery? We'll come back while he's making those?
We can
'cause
come
really
back.
need those.
Yeah, let's go back to let's move on to the city gallery.
I can't believe I left
Okay, well,
my notes on
the reception for our photo exhibit, thank goodness Linda sent me a text, is tomorrow from 5:30 to, I actually prefer 7, and it's part of the Ojai's Third Friday. So the artists will be here. We'll have a few snacks and look at the beautiful photographs that they did.
And winners from that contest are at the museum.
Excuse me?
The winners are at the museum, too.
Yes, and the beautiful winners' pieces are at the museum.
They are gorgeous.
They look
really are.
oh, they're beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. So that's what's going on. And the next exhibit is going to be Joanne Pavlak. She's going to have small pieces and some big pieces as well, and we'll have more information next time.
Okay,
You have a date?
all right. In James's absence, I think we can move on then to the Arts Ojai Education Committee.
Okay, well, I have several things. I'm sorry. I want to make sure that you all know about the town hall, town talk meetings that are at the museum. And there's a town, they do this,
Yes, I do know about that.
okay. So next, not, the 25th, February 25th, from 4:30 to 6, at the Ojai Valley Museum, there will be a town talk about the architecture of Ojai. And we will also have books there to sell. Now, the next thing that I wanted to tell you, which you all know, except for Christine wasn't there, but everybody else came to a very successful book launch.
That's because my grandkids were in Singing in the Rain, by the way.
Oh,
Well,
well.
that
Just
is
want everybody to know that.
I
Priorities.
wasn't admonishing you, I was just addressing that you,
No.
that
They
you
were- I
didn't
was
get
at
to
Singing in the
partake in
Rain.
this incredible event.
It was pretty
And
incredible.
there were over 100 people there. It was amazing. We sold over 130 books that night.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh,
Great,
Yeah.
great, great.
Yeah, and James just informed me that the museum is purchasing 222 books,
oh, that's great.
which is phenomenal.
For selling in their gift shop.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for selling.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so that's really
There you go,
wonderful.
Bob
And,
Bay.
and I want to thank,
That is awesome, okay.
our next step is to, of course, go out into the community and, push these things hard. And Craig Walker, the author, has offered to take books and present them at Rotary and do some things like that.
Good,
And
good.
he would be willing to do that. And we're so fortunate, Stuart had a connection at the inn, and next thing we know,
Saving that from my report.
oh, I'm sorry. Okay, then I won't.
No, go ahead. Go ahead, tell them how great I am.
Well, you were next anyway, so.
Yeah, he's great. What can I tell you? He got us a connection with the inn, and it went to the next person, who then requested that we send him a sample copy of the book. So we do have some books set aside as samples. When a vendor requests a book for review, we've got to give them one.
Sure.
You can't say no,
Yeah.
unless it's, I would say that is limited, because if it's a shop that's going to sell 3 books, you don't give them a free book. But if someone substantial like the Inn or the Oaks or somebody like that, we give them a book. So that was really good news.
Are you going to be in Made in Ojai? Will they sell books? Made in Ojai, on Montello Street?
That it's no longer Made in Ojai. It's
Right.
another owner.
That
and-
moved to the front. It's on the,
No,
No, that's,
no.
that's Ova
That's-
moved to
That's
Ojai.
Ojai Valley Art.
Yeah, no, but Made in Ojai is gone, it's another group, and they have a setup, kind of like OVA, that the artist comes and works there, and they have to pay a
Oh, that's
percentage.
right.
Co-op, it's
Yes.
co-op.
Not
It's
so much.
not,
It's a collective, essentially.
Yeah.
yeah, it's not a place
Okay.
for us
But
to
OVA does buy things to sell, so you could approach them.
be. Okay.
Yeah, Ova's good.
Well, and any input you have on suggestions, please let us know, because,
Bobby, could you repeat the information for Town Talk?
yes, Town Talk is February 25th from 4:30 to 6 at the Ojai Valley Museum. Craig Walker will be doing a presentation on the architecture of Ojai, and there will be discussion.
Oh, great.
okay. I have suggestions for selling the book. I would go into Down Home Furnishings and some of the other, there's another couple other stores there in Rains, because I think they definitely would sell books, yeah.
Yeah, I would
But
think
also
Human
Down
Arts
Home
is-
Furnishings and the others, because a lot of people that come in there, they're interested in homes and architecture.
Well,
They're
Arts
there to
books.
decorate their houses, and
That's true.
I think they would go, and I think they would carry them for you too.
Yeah.
So I just go up and down along the arcade, you've got stores there that would do it.
And, oh, go ahead, did you say?
I have a question, Bobby, and then maybe we don't need to discuss this. So we are selling the books outright, we're not consigning them anywhere?
Right, no,
So we're discounting them 20%.
right,
Right.
that was my next announcement, so thank you.
And
Yeah, I was gonna say
You know,
that,
while
we
you're-
came to a
while
consensus.
you're asking that, do we have to approve any of this? As, you know, can less than a quorum make those decisions for the whole group? I mean, not that we wouldn't approve it, but I just wonder what the,
I think that falls within the purview of the committee, and the project has been approved, and from the outset, we've talked about selling the book. So I think it's the responsibility of the community.
to set prices and things like
The
that?
price was established months and months and months ago.
And 20% off and
Yeah,
stuff?
I was
That
gonna
was
say,
announced and discussed.
I want to make a point in the future of probably making sure we bring those back. I know we did talk about it, but bringing them back. But yeah, this process, we maybe didn't kind of do that as closely as I normally would. So I missed that, but we'll do that in the future.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I really don't have anything else other than, we think, the committee at least thinks, that it is the best solution to do this, that they purchase it outright at 20%, and then it's so clean that way.
Yes.
You know, there's no mess of keeping tabs of how many books they took if they're doing it on consignment. It resolves the sales tax issue, because we don't get in the middle. The city can work that out with whoever is buying
So
it.
the city is the seller, and the city will have to file a sales tax
Yeah.
return.
So we're not in the middle of all that. Yeah.
And the city, for the most part, so far, it's been wholesale, so that also solves some of the problems. And
So-
that's why we're doing the
Right.
80% is because of the wholesale.
Right.
Right. So you won't technically collect any sales tax from the retailers.
No.
No.
They'll collect sales tax
They'll
from their
collect sales tax,
purchasers.
yeah.
Right,
Okay.
right. That's it?
Oh, now, originally we talked about consigning things, so I was confident I could go in and, convince people to have the books on consignment. Now we're selling them, and I never sold encyclopedias door to door, so, yeah, kind of uncomfortable. Maybe Stuart could come with me.
I'm very charming,
I know. You're awesome.
but I hate sales. No,
All right, moving along.
Okay. Oh, well.
Okay, anything else, Bobby? Okay. Bravo, onward. Let's go back now to public art. I think we're ready
Yeah,
to
you know,
kick on that.
I have to tell you, I spent a lot of time making a really tight little presentation on this before we begin with the three of us are each going to give a presentation on a project we researched for all of you. And I left it sitting at home. So now I did that so I wouldn't wander, but I'm going to try to remember what it said. And I know the first thing that I had put down to explain to everybody was that we have never, this is the first time ever that we have even attempted to launch a project with the expenditure coming from the Public Art Fund. All the other projects we've done have come from monies from 2% for the arts. So the reason I point that out is because I am making a record of all the steps that we're going through, because there is no procedure, there is no record, there's faint guidelines. And what I did was I did a ton of research on the internet, and I found out that there's selection criteria for selecting a project. That's where you start. So if you look at the sheet in front of you, that is a way that I organize selection criteria into 3 categories to make it a little cleaner for all of us. And I'm going to walk you through that just very briefly in a minute. But before I even do that, I want to say that in addition to doing research on the internet, I met with Susan Ament and asked her a whole ton of questions. And I also found on the internet that there's an organization called the Public Art Project. And it has really clear, really good step-by-step information on how to go through a process like this. So this is step one, and it doesn't happen the three of us select. We didn't bring to you 3 projects. We brought to you a brainstorm session last time and asked you to identify projects. We went back and picked the 3 that are the permanent projects to each do research on. So we did our research to be able to explain to you, for each of them, how the project builds upon civic pride and community identity, serve as a community asset, not as a community assist. I have a little typo there. Create a sense of place, capture history, and tell a story. Those are common public art themes and public art goals. The artwork itself, and typical cost for the project, what is the suggested theme? I just want to let you all know that we don't have to have a theme. That's not required. And in fact, Susan says it's best to keep the theme so milquetoast and so vague, otherwise artists will get locked in a box. It was really interesting to talk to her. Plop art came up. It comes up all the time in all the literature, plop art. And the idea there is that you don't take this wonderful project and just go sit it down somewhere. It should be incorporated into the area itself. It's really an important kind of like no-no or yes, no-no. Recommended artwork materials, scope for the RFQ. What does that mean? An RFQ is a request for qualifications. And for this project, we will be following that procedure, that we would do a request for qualifications. And what we would be coming back and talking to you about, depending on the project, is how big of a scope should we go? Should we go just to Ojai artists, Ojai Valley artists, Ventura County, all of California, the whole country, the world? And this isn't to answer the question today, but it's for you to think about what would, as you're listening to what the project would be, what would be your, would that affect how you feel about the project going forward? Site appropriateness, that's back to plop art. Level of public interaction with the possible site. I didn't write there, it was originally on one of the worksheets I was doodling with, vandalism concerns. So add that to that list, because you want to be listening for whether or not there are more vandalism or less vandalism concerns. That's something that city council members have never not brought up when a project is mentioned. They always bring it up, so we need to think about it. Now, the next bullet there are additional costs disallowed by the ordinance, and I want to talk to you about that so that we're all on the same page. Site preparation costs, according to the Public Art Fund list, the actual cost of preparing the site for putting in whatever it is covered. But any other development, any other costs, let's say that we have an undeveloped site, well, you just don't want to plop the art there. So there'd be costs involved in developing an art site, and that would have to be approved by city council, and they would have to put the money there. So I just want everyone to be aware.
I gotta stop you there, 'cause I'm confused by what you said.
Okay.
Okay. So these additional costs for site prep are not covered by the RFP, or?
If they are not directly related to installing the piece of art, they are not covered. So let's say you had a tract of land, but it was all weeds. But it would be so perfect, but we'd have to develop that tract of land in order for the sculpture to make sense and not just be plopped there.
Okay.
We'd have to go to city council.
Gotcha.
They would have to agree to develop the site with their money. Is that
Okay.
helping?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. A covenant can be needed if it's a private site. A mural ordinance may or may not be needed. I'm not going to get into the details because we're each going to do a presentation now. And there may be concerns about the history of the site, and we'll get into that with specifics. And I had happened to run into Marcy and asked her if she would mind going first with her presentation. She said yes.
Yes, she'd mind, or yes, she'll go first?
She'll go
Well, then
first.
you look really happy about that.
I'll go first.
Oh, all right, that's not what you said to me, though.
It'll be awesome.
Michael, do you want to go first?
No, I want Marcy to go first.
Okay. So, That's not the beginning.
There we are.
That's not the beginning.
That one is. That's number one anyway.
Yeah. Okay. So I thought I would give a little bit of background about environmental art.
So
other-
natural element sculpture.
Right. As you admire these incredible examples of environmental or earth art, or earthworks, sometimes it's known as. And environmental art was a movement, an arts movement that emerged in the 60s and 70s in reaction to the commercialization of art found in galleries, museums, collections, corporate collections, so on. By removing the art from traditional settings like that and out into nature, the commercial aspect was downplayed and the appeal of environmentally sensitive art emerged. The 60s and 70s, of course, was the era of the birth of the ecological movement. The materials that were used, and still are natural materials of the earth, sometimes found in situ. The works were often sited distant from population centers, however, though fairly inaccessible photographic documentation was commonly brought back to an urban art gallery. Locating the artwork in natural settings far from urban centers reflected the artist's rejection of urban living and an enthusiasm for all that is rural. Included in those inclinations were spiritual yearnings concerning the planet Earth as home to mankind. This is like the perfect kind of art for Ojai, I mean, in terms of that. Notable artists include Andy Goldsworthy, who's British, David Nash, also British, Sylvain Meyer, Richard Serra, Robert Smithson. Some other works are transitory. For example, Goldsworthy, you saw the base of a tree trunk that had bright orange leaves that looked like they were on fire around the base. Well, he set those leaves there knowing it would be temporary. If a gust of wind comes up, the leaves are gone. His art installation is history. I'm going to go back to that tree trunk.
Whoop, whoop, whoop. You went past it.
There.
There it is. So there's photographic evidence of it, but to experience it, you would have to have come upon it and discovered it before Mother Nature did a revision. So that's a lot of environmental art, too, is made to be discovered accidentally, actually. You just happen upon it and you see it. There's one artist that has an installation. He won't tell anyone where it is. You have to find it. You can only find it with a GPS coordinate, but he won't reveal where it is. So they're kind of hidden, and that kind of goes against the grain of what we want our public art to be, accessible to all and visible to all. So that's one aspect of environmental art that needs to be squared with what we probably would wind up doing. But I have some thoughts about that. Many of the environmental art pieces were intended for those exploring nature and by happenstance to discover a beautiful installation. There is one special, I told you about that. Okay, so I have a quote. Robert Smithson, well-known environmental artist, says, "A work of art, when placed in a gallery, loses its charge and becomes a portable object or surface disengaged from the outside world." So I think that pretty much sums up the beauty of environmental art, and Ojai is just screaming to have something amazing. I'll go through. Okay, we could stop. Wait, are we done?
We've seen them.
That's it?
We've seen them.
It almost looks Chumash, that one.
Isn't that something?
I love that. It's so whimsical. That's another thing. It can be, a really whimsical piece.
Beautiful.
Wow, look at that.
The pond, isn't it?
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's a
The reflection creates a whole leaf.
It's beautiful.
Okay. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the points that Christine raised in terms of evaluating an environmental art piece, and then at the end, I'll show you pictures for a site that I located, and we all know it. But I think it's probably our most likely candidate at this point. But I have another idea relating to environmental art being discovered or happened upon. So we'll get to that. Okay. The public art piece should build upon civic pride. Ojai's public art process, as dictated by Ojai's public art ordinance, doesn't guarantee, but makes it likely that the public art piece will be a source of pride for the community. Environmental pieces are not commonplace, and the fact that a semi-rural town commission an environmental art piece will be a rarity. Building upon community identity, Ojai is identified as a natural, low-impact environment, priding itself on the outdoor lifestyle with many hiking trails, and our backyard is basically the Los Padres National Forest, becoming a community asset. A work of art with the price tag and hopefully artist of prominence will clearly be a community asset. Also, telling a story. An environmental piece has the opportunity to tell the story of the love of the beautiful, this is as it relates to Ojai, could tell the story of the love of the beautiful natural environment in the Ojai Valley from the earliest Chumash inhabitants to our current population. The love of the area, as recounted by philosophers, poets, artists, musicians, and writers, can be expressed, capturing the history of Ojai and the inspiration that it's provided for so many creative people. In terms of being interactive, what was the question? Okay. Nothing is more illustrative of the historical precedent for nature worship than an environmental piece created from the natural findings of the Ojai Valley. Creating a sense of place. Just as hikers and walkers and strollers seek out picturesque spots to admire the pink moment or a particularly quiet and lush spot, they will make a pilgrimage to the site of the natural sculpture, if they find it. Typical cost, this is not inexpensive, as you can imagine, very labor intensive, although the materials are found objects usually, but a work by an artist of world renown, Andy Goldsworthy, it could be $100,000, $200,000 or more, and the site preparation can be $10,000 to $20,000 depending. Doesn't mean that there aren't really creative, inspirational artists out there who couldn't do it for less. We would just have to find them. And the theme or the vision. The art will represent the natural beauty and wonder of Ojai, along with Ojai's resiliency, I'm talking about the fire, and ability to nurture creativity and beauty. Funding. Site preparation costs are not covered by the Art Fund. I would imagine some site preparation costs would involve like grading, clearing, maybe security if necessary, camera, lighting, maybe. Okay, so we can go on to the next group now, James.
All right, does anyone have any questions? Are you done, Marcy? You want to take
No, she's gonna have
I'm
another.
gonna wait to the end.
Oh, you have another group of
Yeah,
questions? Oh,
this is the site that I've located. I considered other sites, and for various reasons, they really weren't acceptable. I've never spent any time.
sites?
Yeah, these are different shots
Of the same site?
of the same site, Rotary Park, which I've never spent any time in. Just drive by it. It's really amazing. There's some really nice little spots in there, and these are some of them. There's a bridge. You've seen environmental work where they've incorporated bridges. That's a little pad where they've got a picnic table. Something might be great there. A nice cleared area with the oak tree in the distance. This is a big grassy area. And there's from the front,
That's at Rotary Park.
Yeah. This is a knoll that I thought might be interesting because it sits up a little bit, it's elevated. Whatever we did there might be visible from the street driving by.
Isn't that right next to the sculpture that's already there?
The horse?
No.
The horse?
It's not right next to it, it's in the vicinity,
Yeah.
but it's not right next to it. Here's just other, just natural areas in the park, which could be, something could be done there too. So, I mean, even that drainage ditch, a really creative person might be able to figure something out there. So the issue becomes, where do we select the particular spot within the site, or does the artist, do we give them options and see what they come up with?
I'd say give them options.
Well,
Anyway, that's,
who owns it then?
okay, Rotary Park is owned by the city.
Okay. That's why you picked that one, because.
Right, the city owns it, so there would not be any
Okay.
fees involved. We were finding out whether or not there's some kind of a memorandum of understanding or whatever with Rotary in terms of what else can go in that park, whether or not they would, have to, give their approval for whatever we want to do. So that's an unknown. So that's an issue. And James was working on researching that particular one. We don't have an answer as of now. City council will have to approve this because it's city land. And so that's that.
I'll add one thing while you're
Oh.
thinking. Can I add one thing?
Yeah.
Just because that area always seems to come up as one of the areas when we talk about the projects. So everything at the Y is Caltrans except for Rotary Park,
Right.
basically. And Rotary Park is owned by the city. And what Commissioner Tusher said is accurate. Right now, we're trying to figure out. We're looking at the records to see if there's any restrictions on what can be done there. But that one is the one area in that zone that is city property.
This is just one possible site.
One possible site.
If we were to move in this direction, I presume that we'd look carefully at other possible sites.
I saw some other sites, but the biggest concerns
Well, that's what I was
I
going
was
to ask
concerned
you.
about vandalism. And as far as I know, this is not a hotbed of that kind of activity, Rotary Park. But anything around Libby Park, we've got vandalism there. So, there were a couple sites that I thought could be interesting, but I think the potential for vandalism was too great, and it concerned me, so. And I think Libby Park, too, is well-developed, well-represented with different works of art. And then, what else do we want to talk about? Artist qualifications. Well, ideally, I think it would be great. Someone who lives in Ojai, understands Ojai, is like a nature person. And, I don't know if any local artists have experience with environmental art, but there's so many creative people. I don't know why.
I think on this one, you'd want to have a wide pool, so you have a wide selection choice, and you might have to go out at least to the valley to get that.
Yeah,
And there's a difference between a landscape architect and the kind of work they do.
right.
My brother having been one.
Yeah.
And an environmental artist. I also think that you might want to add to your list about artwork concerns would be, maybe we'd want to have a botanist or somebody in the field who could ensure us that we wouldn't be damaging oak roots. And I could see what my brother Tom would say right away, don't you touch those oak leaf beds. That's what keeps those trees alive and healthy. So, if we do this, I think it's important that we also realize that part of what we're paying for may be the services of someone coming out and saying, this is sound, we're not going to hurt the environment.
I think whatever we decide tonight is just going to be the beginning anyway.
Absolutely a beginning.
Whatever project we sort of point ourselves towards, if indeed we make that decision tonight, there's going to have to be a whole lot of exploration.
Mhm.
It's-
Yeah.
This is not an overnight project that we're
No,
embarking
and that's
on.
what we want to put in front of you tonight, is that for you to understand, this project means that we're going to have to do some of this. This project means we'd have to do, this project means we'd have, so that when you're thinking about which one to take, you could kind of like compare what's the most likely, what makes the most sense, what is the most whatever. Did you come up with any costs, Marcy?
She gave
Well,
some.
just for like like 100,000 to 200,000,
Whoa.
I don't know. I think the cost will be, an important factor would be, where is this artist from? If we have to pay for an artist to come here and do it, and then we have to house them and provide room and board and all of that, the price goes up. If we have someone who's fairly local, they might be able to work on the installation in the project, and we won't have to bear those costs. Because ideally, though, I did say I think we need to cast the net wider and maybe go up into Northern California, or even Oregon, and even back east, upstate New York, Massachusetts. I bet there's some amazing environmental artists there. But like, that's a consideration. How much will what it will cost us relates to the cost of them being housed somewhere and all of that.
Not necessarily,
But
but just
Linda,
let me
you have
add that that's not necessarily
talk to
true,
you
that we don't
first.
have to
Yeah,
pay the cost for an artist to come here. We didn't do
Well,
that with
but
Shrimp.
what they charge us will reflect what they're having to
But
pay
just
out
so
of
you know, we
pocket.
didn't do that with Shrimp, we didn't pay for his costs.
How long was he here for?
That's carpe for the horses.
That's-
Yeah.
And that's way before
That's a
the
level of detail
cart
we don't
before
need to
the
get into.
horse.
Linda, you had a question?
Well, one of my questions was why you didn't consider other places, and Libby Park, I think, is a natural point for it, but you kind of answered that. But when you were talking about site preparation and lighting and all that, one of the things about this kind of art that I really like is it fits into the environment. So
Right.
it doesn't require a lot in way, you don't want to light it, you don't want to change the environment. If you looked at that one slide in Storm King of Goldworthy's work, it's a serpentine wall that goes around the
Right,
trees.
right.
They're very careful. The people
Right.
that I'm aware of are very careful of the environment, so that's
Right,
already, I
right.
think, understood
Right.
as part of it.
My only thing is I can think of, the city's so concerned with liability and all that. We have something very natural looking in the natural environment, and God forbid someone trips over it, at night.
Somebody can trip in the Barranca. I mean, we've got a public park.
Yeah, and
I don't think
this
that's a
goes in the
concern.
same category of way too much that we need to know now. It's just to
Right.
get the
Let me just say
parameters.
one thing
Stuart?
before, has everybody, I know, Linda, you have been to the Presidio and seen the Goldsworthy there. It's magnificent, and what is so sophisticated about it is that it doesn't look like anybody did anything.
Oh, wow.
And that is the art of Andy Goldsworthy. This is incredible. It's emotional. It's huge.
Where is it?
Impact in the
Presidio.
Presidio in San Francisco. There's 5 different installations there, and we're talking millions of dollars, not hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars for Andy Goldsworthy, because it takes so long. And we, at your house, Michael, we met that project manager who told us all about how it was put together. This is months and months of activity.
With a
to make
very,
something-
very large team of workers under
Yes.
the direction of a noted San Francisco landscape installation artist,
But that's
working with
daughter
Goldsworthy.
So as simple
That's-
as it looks, it's really
Yeah, it's not
complicated.
inexpensive, this art.
Really. And do we have any artists here who know how to do that?
Well, we don't
Except
know.
for Tom Bostrom? I don't think so.
He didn't know how to do
And it
that.
depends on, I
Thank
mean,
you.
Goldsworthy's done all sorts of work. That is monumental
Sure,
in
it
Presidium,
is.
but he's done the temporary, he did things with making frozen things during the winter. He did things out of water that were temporary. I mean, he does all sorts of things. So I'm sure and I know there's other artists out there that do the same thing. I don't think you need to restrict it. I like the idea of it being open to possibility myself.
A
but
wide net.
Yes.
But keep in mind that what we have to spend.
Yeah.
Final thoughts. I'm thinking that the natural setting for something like this, we might be wise to wait and coordinate this with the restoration and replanting of some of the trails in Ojai, utilizing burnt rocks, burnt wood, whatever, and make it part of the restoration process. And then it's kind of more out there, that the environmental art is literally engaged with the environment, more so than a more formalized park setting.
Are those trails in the city of Ojai?
No, they're not.
They're not, it wouldn't.
So
Some
we-
of
it
them
wouldn't
are.
work.
Are they?
Yeah, I think some of them
Part
are.
of shelf, maybe,
And
or
also, the bike trail was on a list of possible sites to develop the part of the bike trail that's within the city. Just a thought. So, yeah, there are trails within
Yeah.
the city.
all right. So just a thought. I also know that there's a buzz afoot about finally, and I see it here, the 1993 master plan for Libby Park, City of Ojai, that there are certain members of the city council and wanting to explore this and actually make it happen finally. There's a chunk of land that connects up with Libby Park where the playground, that part of Libby Park, and doing a sculpture park, which would be amazing.
And that's what I'll be talking about.
Oh, great.
Are you going to talk about
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so then to kind of hold off on something like this and wait until the sculpture park, we would get, probably would cost, I'm thinking, at least $300,000, not more, and we'd get 2% of that, which we could turn around and then use for an environmental sculpture.
They do development, just like the lizard and the ladybug and the arch. We got 2% of that. So we get 2% of any development the city does. It's, the ordinance is not just for private development, it's also for
It's for the
city
city as
development.
well.
That's how Trimpen came about.
I was thinking that, the school system and those were exempt, but the city is.
No,
the
right, so when
city
they
is.
develop the master plan and do the sculpture site, we'll get 2%. So Marcy, I don't know what the point.
So it makes sense to wait for that.
Not necessarily.
Well, I think it makes economic sense to wait, use that money towards something amazing to put in to inaugurate this sculpture park that I think could be amazing. Anyway, these environmental sculptures take a long time.
Thank you, Marcy. Does
Okay.
anyone have any questions for Marcy before we go to the next one?
I just would like it to be not the best we can do, but something really great. Do you know what I mean? Look at this little town, what they did. Oh, we worked so hard and it's great, and it's not great. It's not great, it's okay, but it's not good enough because we don't have people who have experience in this genre. We have sculptors, certainly. We could put a sculpture on the trail.
But it
That
doesn't.
would be nice.
It doesn't have to be a local artist either.
Yeah, do
Yeah,
realize
but we
that,
have what, $60,000?
well, we did get Trimpen, and he's world-known.
Yeah.
And that was about the cost, was about 60.
And sometimes some towns find a patron that will put
Yes,
somebody
that's
up.
a good idea.
And then
Very
that
good.
can be part of the
Exactly.
funding too,
Possible,
so.
too. Very
And that did
possible.
happen with
But
Trimpen. He
I
stayed
think
with the Hirsches.
whatever we do, if we do something that has real scope and scale, that would be one of the first things we would do, is to try and get local patrons to sign on, just as they did with the recreation of Libby Bowl.
Yeah.
Exactly.
This could be a major opportunity to engage those people in the community who know and love art and have accessible monies that they could contribute.
And I'm
So-
thinking, the Green Coalition, maybe some of their major donors, the Land Conservancy,
I doubt it.
no?
I can think of several people that we could approach
Okay.
without any question
Right.
at all. Let's move on. Christine?
Yes,
if
let's
you
move
would,
on.
please.
Do you want to do yours next?
Sure, I'd be happy
Okay.
to.
Which one is yours?
Well, mine is listed as Thomas Fire Sculpture, and that was the initial impetus for it, was the idea that, given the fact that this community has gone through this extraordinary catastrophic or near catastrophic experience, that perhaps the Arts Commission could, as a piece of public art, commission casting, again, either a broad net or a local net or a Ventura net or whatever, and get submissions from artists with perhaps a broadly defined theme, as Christine earlier suggested, so it didn't lock artists into anything, and seek submissions for a sculpture that could be commemorating and celebrating the way this community dealt with the fire. However, as I investigated this idea and thought about it, I also found out about the impetus that seems to be developing to really activate the master plan for Libby Bowl. And in looking at the two master plans that have been submitted, the most recent one is 1993, and there was one earlier one. I don't remember the date of that one. But in both cases, in all cases, they have included a sculpture park. And that led me to investigate that as an idea. Again, this would be something of considerable scale. It would depend upon the council agreeing that this was an important next step in terms of civic development, that they would activate that part of the master plan. And so I have a series of slides here that just give you some quick examples of various communities that have initiated sculpture parks of one sort or another. This one is, I can't see the caption, there we are.
Calder.
This is a Calder, obviously.
Seattle.
It's in Seattle. Keep going if you would, please.
Calder.
And this one is in New York,
That's-
Storm
That's Storm
King.
King, yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
Keep going, please. Now, this is just one piece in a park that is
That's a
full
Moore, isn't it?
of art. This is a Henry Moore.
Is that more?
And keep going, please. And this is in Las Vegas,
That's
which
right.
is the collection of old neon signs,
Oh,
which is
that's great.
fantastic.
Great.
Great.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
I gotta check that out the next time I go.
And this is,
St. Louis.
That.
Where's that
It's
at?
an eyeball.
yeah,
St.
this is in St.
St.
Louis.
Louis.
Keep going, please. And we're back to the Calder. So this is really the subject that I would like to present for our consideration. It would be a long-term project. It would not immediately lead to the creation of a sculpture because we'd have to work through the city council, we'd have to work with the city council, we'd have to get a piece of land dedicated by the city council as a community sculpture park. It could be this corner lot right outside the city hall, which is immensely visible, a lot of traffic by there, and the community flows through here constantly, so that would be, I think, a prime area. It's also directly across from the police station, so I suspect that the issue of vandalism will be dealt with to some large degree by that proximity. And it could be the beginning of a particular relationship. I've spoken with Frederick Janka, who is the executive director of the Carolyn Glasso Foundation. And I know you've all heard of that, and they've already made a significant mark, I think, in Ojai with their arts activities. And it turns out that Frederick is in fact on the Arts Advisory Commission in Santa Barbara, and they are actively pursuing installing sculpture in public spaces along State Street in Santa Barbara. So, we have here in Ojai a foundation and the executive director of that foundation who is actively engaged in this sort of project. And in our conversation, he said he was positive that the foundation would be very interested in working with the Art Commission on a project of this sort. And they already have offers of work from artists that wish to celebrate Carolyn Glasso, for whom the foundation is named. And so that could be part of the initial installation, in addition to what we could commission. And going through this list of public art goals, it would, I think, really meet all of these criteria in terms of civic pride, a community asset, sense of place. History would depend on the nature of the sculpture, obviously. The costs would be no more or less significant, I think, than anything else that we decided to do, in the sense that we would have to pay to commission an artist, and we'd have to pay to install the work of art. But if the city and the foundation were engaged with us in this, and in that way, if we were drawing on broader resources, we would be, in a sense, redoubling what we have available to us, and also doing something that was more than a one-term project. It would be, if you will, rather like our idea that the first book we've done is, we hope, the first of a series, and other things that we do that are long-term. The grant program, the lifetime achievement program, the artist-student mentor program. All of these are continuing activities of the Arts Commission, and I think that this project could have that same feel, that it would be a beginning, and a strong beginning if we were doing it in conjunction with the foundation, and that we could then go forward from there. So that's really what I have to report. Stuart?
Would the Glasso Foundation be the curatorial
That's
aspect of this?
something,
'Cause I think
that's
very
something that we would
important.
have to work out. It would
Needs to be
depend.
good enough.
Absolutely. We'd need to work out exactly what the relationship was and what the responsibilities were. Linda?
The last time they came here, they were gonna rent spaces from the
Right.
city to put their
Right.
sculptures on. I'm a little nervous when you start talking about initiating a program with an organization that really we don't know that much about. It's a
True.
fairly new organization.
True also.
He may be on an advisory committee in Santa Barbara, but I certainly wouldn't want to get involved with anything like that going out of the gate for first public
They showed
art.
us their financials. I mean, you could,
Yeah, obviously.
if you look at that, review that paperwork. But as I recall, they said that those pieces of art, we would own them.
No.
They're on loan. I don't know if we want to invest in something where we've got rotating sculptures. Didn't you mention, Christine, that there was a rotating sculpture program at one point, and that just really was not?
There are fabulous rotating sculpture programs in a lot
Yeah.
of cities. So I wouldn't shy away from a rotating sculpture program.
Not at all.
They can be very powerful, and sometimes what happens is you bring in the sculptures, and they are there for a period of time, and the public chooses which one the commission, in this case, is going to purchase, and then it becomes permanent. And you repeat that process, and it's very exciting for artists, it's very exciting for the public, it's very collaborative. So
Didn't
I
you say
wouldn't
this
worry
didn't
about
work
that.
last time? Behind the arcade?
Had some and it was available.
Well, that was a different thing. That's not what we're talking about. I think if I'm hearing Michael correctly, he's talking about identifying a site for a sculpture park, which right away, I would have you all look at the last page of the site thing and see where it's located.
Oh, yeah.
It's beautiful. It's at the top of a knoll.
It's on a promontory with a
Looks
great,
out- It's a fabulous site, and you can take a tour. And there are also, I will add, that it's possible to get funding for that, to help the city and move them along. And when I asked about this, I was talking to a council member, and the advice given was Parks and Rec have just really appealed to city council to put into their budget money to do Sarzati Park. He says, if you push up against city council that you want them to work on developing the sculpture site, and you show you have other organizations helping you, it's possible that this thing could move along in the next 2-3 years. But it would take a push from the Arts Commission, is what he said. It took a push from Parks and Rec. It would take a push from us to do it. But it's there to do. And if it's a site that is a sculpture park, I don't think we're going to have the kind. People didn't like the art. It was kind of isolated, and it was in the spot where sculpture, Linda will remember, and Michael, you might have been here at the
What?
time, and Bobby.
The bear's
that there
there now.
was a fountain there that was much beloved from a woman who died, and it was taken down, and that was,
That doesn't
yes.
have anything to do with the rotating sculpture.
Well, it did. I'm sorry, it did, because people talked to me about it and said the reason people don't like the sculpture is they're upset about the Nancy Rupp fountain, and that's why they're vandalizing them. That's just a story I was told. If that's wrong, it's wrong, but I was told that by many people.
Okay.
But if we, I'm sorry, but you're talking about moving ahead on a master plan when we can't even get a $12,000 rack.
Well, we're not selecting it. We're just
I
talking
know,
about
I
the,
know. I just would, I love the idea of the master plan. It's awesome. But and you're talking about waiting till that's done. I think it's a little over.
Well, why don't we hold reactions until all three presentations are done, and then we'll open it up to a round table, and we can all talk about our responses to different
Why
ones.
don't
Does
you
that
go
work?
ahead with yours now? Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Michael. That was really interesting, and Marcy, too. Okay, so I looked into the Playhouse mural, and James, I'm not quite ready for that yet, but eventually. The first category, public art goals, I think it's pretty obvious that if we put out a call for a mural or some application on the side of that wall, that it would be very possible that the RFQ itself would say that whatever it is has to build upon civic pride and serve as a community asset and create a sense of place and tell a story. So that would be right there in the RFQ. So I think that's a no-brainer in that category.
And that really could be a part of all of the proposals, whatever
Absolutely.
we choose.
Of course.
It'll
Yeah.
be driven by what we describe as the nature of the
Right,
project.
and I now have samples of RFQs, and they all have this kind of language in them. The artwork itself, usually the labor cost goes from $35 to $50 a square foot. And I had Marcy stop in the car with me, and we tried to figure out how many square feet that side is, and it's a lot. And so I think that we could have a range for this project that would not have to exceed $45,000, and that would include other costs, such as the cost of, all the projects would need an art consultant, and that they are legitimate to come out of there. And that would, so when I'm giving you that, between 40 and 45,000, that's a total cost on the high end, from what I've seen. If tile work comes back to us, you want to have offered that upper range, and I'm going to show you some tile murals, so you'll see why I think it would be important to include a higher range cost. Let's now go to the slideshow, so you can see a lot of people object to a mural on the side of the Playhouse because they immediately, what's evoked is Santa Paula or Miners Oaks, and they say, we don't want Ojai to look like Santa Paula or Miners Oaks. So I picked out
It's a subtle
a variety,
racist
don't go fast now, James, I'll say when, okay? Can you hear me okay? I was thinking no one can hear me because I'm going deaf, and I am going deaf. This is, I can't see it real well from here, I'm also going blind.
What's your sense of?
What is it?
I don't know, I think this is a painted mural. James, you gotta stay over there, I'm not gonna go that slow. Oh, can I have it?
Oh, yeah, go for it.
Does this look like a painted mural to all of you?
Yes, it is.
Okay, good. I clicked the one with the orange ticket on it?
I love the treehouse in this one.
Isn't that fabulous? It's really interesting, and it's got dimension too. It takes you into the wall. And if we did something like that.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
joking.
Oh, you were joking, okay. Now, this is not anything like what you see in Santa Paula. It's not anything like what you see. It's like really kind of a cool thing.
Wait a minute, let's back up.
Yeah.
What is this about not like Santa Paula, not like Miners Oaks? Are we
Um,
saying we don't want murals that in any way celebrate
What I'm showing here in the slide.
culture? Is that what we're
All
saying?
right, I'm going to give my presentation, Michael. And what I'm saying here is that I purposefully picked out murals that show that we don't have, I'm not saying we shouldn't or we wouldn't, but we don't have to go that way. There are other options. The way of Santa Paula kind of murals, that there are other choices. I wanted to give everybody a chance to see different things. So here's a very realistic rendition, a kind of foresty scene. There's another one that's a painted mural. Now we get into the tile murals. This is a tile mural. I wanted to show you different applications as well. This tile mural was done by RTK Tiles. It's in Orange Grove. So that's what RTK does.
It's smaller.
That is not real big. I wrote it down and didn't keep that paper, but it's not very big.
The Oaks, isn't that one of the ones?
No, I think this one actually is
They have several
not in the
like
Oaks,
that.
but they do, yes.
Well, that's fun.
yeah, that's kind of a fun thing. And this one's there so that you can see that you don't have to do a rectangle. And you could do a triptych. You could break the space up. And once again, you wouldn't direct artists. You'd leave it up to artists. You'd include in the RFQ the shape of that building, which is not rectangular, by the way, and let them have go at how they would configure it. This is Susan's mural at the collection in Oxnard, and I thought it was good to show this because the RFQ simply said it must depict all the elements that make Oxnard, Oxnard. And so within this mural, she has, everything represents something that has to do with life in Oxnard, whether it's the golden poppies or the sun and surf or whatever, or the seagulls and so on. That's Susan's, outside of Whole Foods.
Was that glass tile? What kind of material?
Tile,
Yeah.
tile.
Glass tile.
It was glass tile.
Yeah, is that what, because we all went with her to, and she talked about it, but that was a while ago. This is an interesting one. Again, it's, reminiscent of waves and water and sunshine, but it's abstract. Now, I also wanted to show you wall applications that aren't paint and aren't tile. This is metal, and it's three-dimensional. So, I mean, we can go limitless on this. We can absolutely just see what we get if we did an RFQ. This is another one that I thought, again, I wanted to pick out ones that were so different than what we normally think of, to answer
That's
Michael's question.
It's 3D, yeah?
Yeah, I think so. Hard to tell from the picture. Look at that. That almost looks like it's using natural elements, doesn't it?
Yeah, is that a fountain?
I don't think there's water involved in that. Okay, there
It
could be
looks
though,
very
because
much-
there's like a little thing there,
Looks
isn't
very
there?
much like the water feature on the outside of the cabana at the inn.
At the end.
Oh, does it?
It's exactly. the
Yeah,
same
it shows you I
size.
haven't been there. And that's it. So that was just to give you samples of artwork that, as I said, are very different from maybe what we see in neighborhoods around us. I don't think it would be plop art as long as we're careful in how we put out the call for qualifications. The scope, it certainly can be that we're asking for whatever it would be that would reflect community values. The site itself, well, appropriateness. We might have to work with the historians of the community in order to make this work. There is a facade. I did a lot of research and reading on the history of this building, and it no longer looks the way it did originally. But nevertheless, there are folks who think it should be preserved as a historical site. And I talked to a couple council members about that as well. Could we get stopped if we pick this project? Would we get like a halt? They're going to declare it historical. And the city council members I talked to felt that it would not be an issue and that we could work with the Historic Preservation Commission and those folks and have this happen. There's a tremendous amount of interest in something happening to the side of that wall. I also talked to Khaled and to his wife and Cheryl, and they are absolutely 100% in, would do a covenant with the city for that. They're keeping the theater building. They're very interested in it and want to work with us and would put us in touch with Carrie Miller. And there'd be a public art jury, and you have to have the architect there. So Carrie Miller would be on that public art jury, and we would be able to actually say, this is the wall preparation that's needed. The way the timeline on this is, according to Colette and Cheryl, is that the finishing on this wall would happen in late summer, early fall. So it's possible that Carrie would be in the loop and we'd be able to say, don't do any finishing until we know what we need. Susan brought out, you have to be sure that the wall is strong enough to hold the weight of tile or body. There's all sorts of, just like every one of these has considerations. Don't let me trick you into thinking that this one doesn't have considerations. It does. It has plenty of them. Yeah. So, but there are no additional site preparation costs here. That we would have the money to devote solely to the art and the putting it on the wall. Now, do we need a mural ordinance? I've done some research into that. Susan does not think so. Susan feels that the public art ordinance would supersede a mural ordinance in this case anyway, because this project is being funded by public art money. The mural ordinance is really written for private developers, people who own businesses here in town and want to put murals up. So that ordinance would be underneath, if you get my drift, of our public art ordinance. So I happen to have a mural ordinance that was written by, who did I tell you guys wrote it at the meeting? See, all my notes are at home. Zelma, one of the original persons that got us an arts commission in the cities. Yes, thank you. She wrote a mural ordinance, and I have a copy of it, and I'm working on it. I'm fine tuning it. It's not ready, but I'm fine, because it was written like 10, 12, 14 years ago. I'm fine tuning it. We can get a mural ordinance, I think, passed pretty quickly, but I don't think we need one to do this project, just saying. But we would need a covenant, and we have an agreement already. So, any questions about a mural on the side of the theater building? Or concerns or anything?
Would the artists be exclusively Ojai Valley?
Thank you. Well, I think it would behoove us to go as far as Ojai Valley. And then I was thinking, I don't know if this is doable, but I know we have a lot of people who lived in Ojai, artists, but they don't live here any longer. But they know Ojai, and Ojai's in their heart, and I don't know if there's a way to include them. Or we could just say, hey, all of Ventura County. I don't know. It's not, we don't have to decide it now, but, we would all discuss that.
Yeah, it could go anyway.
Do you feel that the timeline you're talking about is realistic? I mean, I know just after working for 2 years on this book, how everything takes longer than you think, and to be ready for, when the, Terry Miller, what's his name? Terry Miller. When,
Yeah.
when he's
Yeah.
ready to go, are we gonna be ready to go?
Yeah, well, if I believe that if this project was selected, that we would have a public art jury form before the end of the summer. And once Kerry is on that jury, he would not finish that wall. He would wait and finish it according to what proposal we selected. So he'd be working with us in that
Have
case.
you actually spoken to him? Because
Just Khaled.
my understanding of the way contractors work is that they have a finish date to get their final payment and so on and so forth. So I think that could be a
This
very.
more than likely would be all worked out with part of the covenant and whatever. I think, that's all, that's again, it's like none of these projects don't have like little wrinkles in them, and that's something we'd have to figure out.
I think the issue that Bobby is raising is a very important one. I think we run the risk of having money burning a hole in our pocket and saying, oh my God, we've got $60,000 and we got this wall and Coletta said it's okay and let's do it. And I would hate to see us rush through anything that really should be dealt with.
Yeah, no, we wouldn't rush.
Absolutely.
We would not rush,
To
absolutely.
meet a deadline by the end of the summer.
I don't-
That-
No, there's no deadline there to meet.
That's what I was just gonna say.
That's just to know that it's possible, it's not required, but it's possible that we might be in a position, no deadline, but we might be in a position where we would be able to the building can be finished and we can do
That's what I was
the
gonna
mural on the finished building.
Yeah,
So
we
there's
wouldn't
no
have to have it.
requirement for that to happen.
Yeah.
So probably shouldn't have even brought it up. I'm just saying there's a possibility that
Marcy's
it
got
could all work out.
Marcy?
If I don't ask it, I'll forget it. Might be for James. Can the theater get a certificate of occupancy without that wall being finished?
Great question.
Off the top of my head, I think it would just depend on, they're gonna have to do some work on the interior of that. I guess it just depends on if they finish the interior and leave the exterior for the mural.
They could prepare it for the final stucco coat or whatever.
Right. And then
And
just
I'm
leave
wondering if
that.
they could get the C of O with the wall in that condition.
I think they could if they did that, but that's.
It's another
yeah.
wrinkle.
Yeah.
But even if they, I mean, I don't think that it's, to me, looking at this project, we've looked at that project way before this happened.
Yeah.
So I don't think it should have any bearing on whether we select it or not, because the building was redone inside, it was all done, and we were talking about doing a mural then. So to me, I don't think we have to rush, because it's something
No,
we've been
we don't.
talking about for years. So,
I agree, Linda.
yeah. So I think it's a great idea, actually.
Other
And
thoughts and comments?
I like the idea of the 3D thing too with the iron. I thought that was
Yeah,
interesting.
that was striking.
Striking,
I
very striking.
agree. What I don't want is the panoply of Ojai history with the Chumash and the settlers came in and Mr. Libby and all that realistic stuff. I don't think that's sophisticated enough for our town.
So,
So I would not vote for that.
yeah, so let me, I want to respond to Stuart, because I think it's really important. When we select one of these projects, let's just say it's the mural we select, at that point, a request for qualification goes out in which we give a very general idea of what it is we're looking for. We could get 200 artists who would submit something to us. It's up to the public art jury, which is defined by the ordinance, who's on that public art jury. Only one arts commissioner is on that public art jury. It really is the public, to select what goes on that wall and bring it back eventually here for approval here. So there isn't anywhere because we choose a mural, we are going to take that one or this one. And as a matter of fact, if we get 200 applications and all of them were the way you described, and the public art jury said, we don't want any of that, we wouldn't do it. Nothing obligates us to carry forward if we don't get something that we all think
And I
is
think also it depends
dynamite.
on how we phrase the requests for
Yes,
submissions.
exactly.
And make it clear what we don't want as well as
Yes.
what we would like.
Yes, and I've got tons of material and templates on it. It's very exciting because it kind of tells you how to do that. And Michael and James and Marcy and I would do the first round of the RFQ and bring it back here to all of you. So for all of this, we're not going to make any decisions. You guys are going to be the decision makers up until the point that a public art jury is selected. And at that point,
From
we're
our
not
group?
involved until they're done with their work.
From a public jury from our group?
No. The public art jury has 7, and I want to go through the whole process once we
That's
choose a
all.
thing, like at another meeting.
Yeah.
But there are 7 people defined by the ordinance who sit on the public art jury. Only one arts commissioner is a member of that, because it really is the public doing the choosing on this.
Let me ask the two artists in this room, Christine and Linda.
Oh, don't I get to be in that group?
You're an artist, yes. But let me ask those two, because you're the advocate, okay? Do you think that the perspective of that enormous wall with a big picture on it and 25 feet distance getting back there, is that too big to
I think it would be up to the artist to figure it out.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay.
That'll be one consideration.
What do you say, Chris?
I think artists would love to do it, and it would be
Yeah.
a great challenge. I like the way one of them, they did break up the space really nicely, and I think a lot of artists might do that with that space, or the three-dimensional. I think it'd be great.
Yeah, I like that. And something abstract would be terrific.
Yes, I agree.
I like that.
Me too.
Okay.
Other comments or questions? The issue is whether we want to make a decision tonight or whether we want the Public Art Committee to go back and have another meeting and talk about the discussion we've had here tonight and come back with a recommendation. It's really up to the commission how you feel. I mean, we could make a decision tonight that we want to go forward with either, Bobby unfortunately had to leave. She's not
Oh,
feeling well.
But I just
We
want,
still have a quorum.
you know,
so-
Michael, I just want to say that as the chair of the Public Art Committee, I really don't want to be in the position of making a recommendation to all of you. I want all of you to make this decision. We've done our homework, and, we each probably have a penchant for the one that we researched, or maybe not. And I think that the discussion is among us, and it was the 7 of us because we're not a quorum, the three of us. We're a research committee. In fact, all the committees are research committees. And to narrow things down is making a decision for the whole, and I don't want to do that. I want all of
I
you.
wasn't implying in
Do
any
that.
way that we would make,
No, I
that the
didn't say you
committee
were.
would make the decision. What I was saying was what we had previously agreed, Christine, was that we would open the possibility at this meeting of either making a decision here and now,
Or next month.
or the committee would go back and discuss it and bring further information to answer questions and so on, and we make a decision next month. So it's really up to the commission at this point,
Yeah.
whether we want to make the decision now, or whether we want further deliberation. Linda?
Well, after listening to everybody, and I think they are all interesting projects, I think we have the budget for the mural. I do not think we have the budget for either one of the other projects. I would love, I mean, my favorite is the natural environment sculpture, obviously.
Mine too.
Yeah, mine
Who
too.
knows, maybe somebody could figure out a way to make the mural natural, I don't know. I really feel like there's no need to come back again after hearing everybody. I mean, that was the point of you researching it, so I hate to make people go back and research it again. I'm comfortable voting, so I don't know about anybody else.
Other comments?
Right, no.
Stuart?
No,
Is your
sorry.
microphone on, by the way?
It is, but
Okay.
I don't have anything to say.
Okay, Christine?
Well, I agree with Linda. I love the environmental and the sculpture garden. I mean, I love all the projects. But I do feel at this time what we would comfortably have the funds for and be able to have something just fantastic is the mural. And plus, it's something that, it's very visible to the town.
That's true.
I think it would be great.
And Marcy?
I agree, and I think the timing of this is perfect in terms of awareness of this art. This is our big coming out party with this piece, and will coincide somewhat with the relaunch of the Playhouse. Everyone will be excited. It'll be something really positive for the community, that we have our Playhouse back in action, and we have this incredible piece of art that people will admire and talk about. And I imagine it's going to be it'll be sophisticated. It won't be a literal
No.
I
Chumash Indian holding the orange.
don't like the Playhouse mural because I'm scared that it's going to be not good enough.
Then we don't
I
vote
don't-
for it.
Then I'm not going to vote for it.
Right,
Right.
right. No, I mean, we don't, then we look at the options, we look at the designs, and we don't
We all do.
vote. Don't we?
No,
We
the
don't
public
vote.
art jury.
Who's on the jury? See, that's what
The
I.
public art jury will come to you for approval of who's going to be on it, and it consists of, you want someone who's like the architect of the building, so Kerry Miller. You'd want Colette on there, because he's the owner of the building, or someone who represents him. You have one art commissioner, and then you have public artists in the town and citizens at large, and it's all spelled out in the ordinance. And you do the request for proposal is narrowed down after they come in to the three, and you're working with an art consultant. And so the documents that go out say, we don't want what you're saying, because we don't want that. None of us want that. They come back, the request for qualifications with artists who've got experience with a particular application. Usually two or three are selected, and they do a request for proposal, which is now they're going to actually show you, they actually get paid for that, and they're going to show you exactly what it is they're going to do. The public art jury selects or not one of those three, and then it comes back here for our final approval. So the chances that it's going to be something that you hate are very slim.
Right.
Because the process
still
is
not gonna
going to
vote for it.
knock that all out of the, that's all going to be not this one, not this one, not this one.
Right. Okay.
You know, I think we're all on the same page. Of course, we don't know, the public art jury might not be on that page, but I have a feeling they would be. They're friends and neighbors.
Okay. Can I make a motion that we choose the mural for you guys to go ahead with? Can I do that?
You certainly can. I want to make some comments as well.
Oh, okay, I'm
please,
sorry.
Michael.
I'm sorry.
And me
Well,
too.
there's a part of me that agrees with Stuart. I'm very concerned about the nature of the mural itself, and I think that is the critical factor, is determining who is going to be on that public art panel is of critical importance, but I'm reassured by the fact that we, as a commission, have to give the final approval. And that, I think, is really important, because whichever commissioner sits on that public art jury is going to have to be in contact with the other members of this commission so that our voice is heard. And I think that member of that commission is going to have to strongly represent what we view as appropriate for that mural. So I'm confident that we could do that. You know, I feel really quite passionate about the idea of developing a sculpture park here in Ojai. I think
I do too.
I think it's something that would be appropriate and could really become a signature achievement that would put us conceivably in league with other cities around the country that have important collections of public sculpture. I don't think a mural will do that. I think murals are increasingly just sort of viewed as eye candy and people go by them. They don't go to visit a mural.
Yeah.
A sculpture
point.
garden, people go to visit.
I agree.
Or a
But
piece
you
of
can't-
public
you
art
can't
of
have
the
the-
sort
I
that you discussed.
think this is a long-term project,
It
the
is.
sculpture.
It
It's
is.
3 or 4 years or whatever. And I don't think one excludes the other. I don't see how one would exclude the other.
Right about that, absolutely.
So,
All right, can I speak then too?
Please.
Because I think what Michael is saying is absolutely critical, and I have the same fear. And it wasn't until I began doing the research and read the process that I realized that RFQ really spells it out. That's where all of our voices the first time are heard, because what it is we're looking for is reflected in that. So any artist that's going to submit something, it's got to line up with what we've asked for. So that's one. It scares me to death to think that we're going to do a mural on there, because it is so visible. We've got to hit the nail on the head on that, or we're just like, this is, no matter what we do, it's going to be controversial. I'll do it. I'm not real happy about it, to tell you the truth, because we're going to get banged up a lot. The reason I think it makes sense to wait, and I say wait because I don't know the right word, on the sculpture park, is because when it's developed, we'll get 2%. So let's say we budget 40 grand for this mural. We're going to have over 20 grand left in there, and then we're going to get 2% to add to that. And that can all be part of that sculpture park, which could, like you said, that's a place where people go. So don't think we should let go of that idea. It's a question of
either or.
whether or not we want to do something pretty, like, immediate, like a mural, or do we want to just say, you know what? Let's not do that immediate thing. Let's take our time, work with Carolyn Glasso, see if we can get Rotary involved, see if we can get the city involved, and do this sculpture garden. I don't know how you make this decision, to tell you the truth.
And I want to say that I think that some people do go to see murals.
Yeah.
Look at Kent Twitchell's murals in LA. I mean, they're absolutely amazing. People go visit them. I mean, if we were fortunate enough to have somebody like John Nava want to do a mural for us,
Or Susan Amen.
or Susan Amen, then, so I think we have the artists in the area to come up with something sophisticated and that could be visible. I mean, I'm also with you guys. I would love the idea of a Goldsworthy in Ojai. I really would, or a sculpture park. But I kind of like this idea, and especially with the images that Christine
Yeah.
showed us.
Okay, look at that image. Now, let me read to you something from Public Art Goals. Create a sense of place, yes. Capture history, no. Tell a story, no. Why does it have to do those things?
Capture
What's wrong with
history.
that?
I don't know that it doesn't capture history, because we have a history of the Oaks in the Valley.
All
That's
right,
the
say-
reason that
say the one
Chumash came
that
here.
water sculpture, whatever that was, that wall. water.
That wasn't,
That's not an Ojai wall,
Well, then
this,
see, then now you're
that
talking
water
about literal
sculpture.
history and
that
not.
but
water
maybe
sculpture,
it
we
did
don't know
work with the
where
city
that
where it's
is.
located, you
And
know?
it could be in where that one is, does
Right.
all those
Maybe.
things.
Right.
You know, ours, we do have oak trees, but would it look like that if it's an Ojai oak tree? You know, in other words, these are just examples to show what murals can be. They're not examples to say, we should do that mural.
Of course not.
And
No.
can I say something else too? I kind of feel like Ojai is dragging their feet on this mural issue. I'm sorry. You said Santa Paula, you don't want to, Santa Paula has some beautiful murals. Ventura has some beautiful murals. Miners Oaks has some
Somebody
interesting
just did
murals.
one.
Yeah, another really amazing
Yes.
mural. So I think the time to be I mean, part of art is taking a risk, and I don't really think murals are that big of a risk. But I think the time is now, quite frankly. And if we have the money, and we don't have money for anything else right now, and if we do have that, we won't even have to use all of it.
I think it's time for you to make a motion.
I did.
Oh, can I make one more point?
Oh,
Yeah.
the nice.
Some developers are paying into the public art fund. They might start to think, well, we put this money in. Show us some art. You know, what are you doing with that money? So I think it's a show of good faith too, that we're actually taking that money that they entrusted us with, and we're creating something. And I think all the while, we build support for the long-term projects we want to do, the sculpture park, an environmental piece, or whatever. But we got to show some good faith here and get some art up there.
I agree.
I agree.
So I made that motion, so.
Is there a second for the motion to
I second.
develop the mural project? Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I think we need to
Better
do,
take
we need to
roll
do a
call
roll
vote
call.
on
Yeah.
this. You would, please, James?
Commissioner Tosher,
Yes.
Commissioner Crowner,
No.
Balderman's absent. Byrne,
Yes.
Commissioner Golden,
Oh, God, yes. God help me.
Vice Chair Harmon,
Yes.
and Chair Addison.
No. Reluctantly. Okay, the motion passes, and we will now move forward on a mural project. Linda?
Can I say, though, that it doesn't mean we don't move forward with developing the other
Of course
ideas?
it
Yes,
does.
yes, I was
Anybody
wondering
meant
that
that.
as well.
All right,
That's
good.
absolutely
But let's show
the
them what
case,
we
and
can,
my
let's
mind
show
is
the
already
community what
spinning
we
into
can do.
that.
I
with
like
this
that.
mural.
I like you. Yes. That's a quote. Let's show this community what we can do.
I think we do that a lot already. A whole lot. Okay, anything else from the Public Art Committee, Christine?
You know,
Christine, we could have someone else be chair of the Public Art Committee if this is going to be a burden for you.
what I want to say is that there's a tremendous amount of work that has to be done, and I'd like the next arm of that to be a presentation to the commission on what the flow chart looks like and what the steps will be for this project, because I think that some of the questions and things tonight is because there's so little understood about that. For good reason. Like I said, this is brand new. We've never done it before. So I would like to do that.
Can I make a
Okay,
request?
You all know what.
Can I make a
how it's gonna
request? If
go.
you're going to do a flow chart, can you do it ahead of time and send us a copy of it so we can just look at it?
If it's okay and we're not violating the Brown Act, sure.
It's just a flow
It
chart.
comes with the
Oh,
agenda.
yeah,
It's
you know
material
what?
for
This
for
Brown Act
discussion.
thing's coming up
You can
again.
provide it to me, and then we'll include it as part of the packet.
Okay. Anything else from Public Art this evening?
I don't think so.
Okay. Okay, we will continue with the agenda and public relations. Stuart, do you have anything to report to us?
Yes, a couple of things. I want to have a meeting with Christine and Linda pretty soon so we can look at the calendar, which James has given us a month or so ago, and make sure that we're on top of everything we need to publicize. The other thing is, the couple of things about the inn. It looks like they're going to sell the book, and we're going to look at it tomorrow, and we should know next week, so that's a good thing. And also, they have something called Experience Ojai. Do you know about that? Linda, you do now. Yeah. And that is a way for this is Mr. Kim's idea, who was here the other one of recent meetings. And it was to bring the inn closer to the local people and let the inn guests know about events that are going on in Ojai. And I sent them Linda's brochure of this show she's got at the Art Center, and they love that. They're so excited. Oh, thank you, send us more stuff. So this is a new way to get the word out to the temporaries, the guests of the inn. So that's good, and that's
very
a way of,
positive, yeah.
I think those are two good things.
That's great.
So that's what I have to say.
You also shared our calendar, right?
Our what?
Our calendar, the Arts
Oh,
Ojai.
I will. I want to meet with them.
Oh,
though.
to do
Yeah,
that,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah, oh, definitely. Yeah, I told them about it, but I want to show it to them.
Okay, Arts Acquisitions Committee, anything, Linda?
No,
No, we're
not
in a
until we,
holding pattern
not
there.
until we get that rack.
Waiting.
Yeah.
You want to borrow my Visa card?
It's got a
Okay,
$12,000 max.
Lifetime Achievement Award, you have in your packet a list of previous recipients, and from last year, a list of potential awardees. What I would like to ask you to do is to look at these and come back at the next meeting, please, with additional recommendations for potential awardees for the Lifetime Achievement Award. I think looking at the previous awards give you a clear idea of the diversity that we've encouraged. Roger Conrad for his work at the museum and his work as a photographer and his general contribution to the arts in Ojai was last year. Linda Taylor, a noted arts educator and printmaker. Jimmy Caleri, a musician, the year before that, Khaled, and so on. So put your thinking caps on, and we'll make that a discussion item for our next meeting. Yes.
I have a couple of things. There used to be a list that also, next to each of the recipients, put down the general field they were in, because that's one of the things we looked at, was the fields they were in. I don't know what happened to that. There's some of that on the second page. But it used to be that sheet. I don't know if you can find it. But it
Yeah.
would say Roger Conrad, and it would put down photography.
I will go through that and.
Yeah. And then,
Will you do
there
that,
are
Linda?
names on here, that it has been suggested that they be disaggregated from the list of potential awardees and moved to the Hope Fraser Award list. Jody James, Lisa Savangeau are two of those that everyone was in agreement at the time that made sense to put them on a second list as possible recipients for Hope Fraser. There might be others that I haven't.
Okay,
Okay.
we'll come to the Hope Fraser Award later.
Yeah.
We do not do that every year, and
I'll make notes on it and then we can pass it out
we'll go forward this next time. Okay,
because I know the ones you need.
yeah.
Yeah.
James?
I don't know if it'd be helpful, but we do have the, the basic criteria of the Lifetime Achievement in the Arts Award, if anybody is interested
Oh.
in
Yes.
seeing that.
Yes, please. Please,
It should be on your website too.
Yes.
yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, James.
Thank you. And I think now we can go to the staff liaison report. If you would, please, James.
Thank you. One thing, I'll just actually pass this around. I thought this was kind of cool. Rosalind Hall, one of the participants in the mentor program last year, sent a thank you card to the commission.
Oh, how nice.
And then,
Like that.
what's first on the list? Project subject to public art. We're working on kind of revamping this because it's getting very lengthy and kind of overwhelming. But we had a couple of items that have updates this week or this month. 601 Pearl Street has contacted us, which is the
Can you point out where that is on
it is on page 2, about a little higher than halfway down. And they contacted us. They ran into an issue. They actually were looking to use an artist that,
Oh, this is the Olive Mill.
yes, the Olive Mill. They were looking to use an artist that they realized has a couple of other recent public art projects, and the ordinance does not allow the artist to have multiple projects within a 3-year period. So they ran into a little bit of an issue, but they contacted us and let us know they're working on it. So thought that was a positive thing. And then we've contacted the inn regarding the farmhouse project, reminding them that we need to get that proposal and present it by March 10th, and they are working on that. And
May I add something to that? Yeah, from what I'm hearing from talking to Peter Kim, they have selected an artist, and they are very well positioned to present to the committee to approve public art. They've also hired an art consultant to help them with all of this, and that's Cindy Frins, who recently worked on another project for us and knows her way around the ordinance. So I'm very, very hopeful that this is gonna,
It's good.
yeah. I would tell you more, but I don't think I should.
No.
Are there any cows? A mural of cows.
Are there any Chicago paper mache
Now
cups?
talking.
That would
This
be
is
funny.
not immediately germane, but I don't know if you all know that the inn has initiated a project where they're going to have, I think, 12 plastic eggs
Yeah.
that are
Foam.
foam eggs, 6 by 3 or something like that, big. And they have drawn artist names out of a hat, and each artist is going to decorate one of those, and they'll be on display
On the lawn, I think.
on the lawn at the inn.
I'm one.
You're one? Congratulations.
Yeah. Well, they approached Ojai studio artists.
Yeah, they are.
Yes.
And in addition to paying each of the artists that they've chosen, they are also contributing $15,000 to the Ojai Studio Artist Scholarship Fund.
No, oh, no, wait, it's 5,000 to the Ojai Studio Artist Fund. The
I
other
thought it was
money,
15.
no, they're giving us 16,000. 750 goes to each artist for the cost of the eggs, like I have to buy all acrylic paint because I don't have any. And then and this was their idea, and then the winner, the public votes on the eggs, and the winner gets a certain amount, I forget how much. So yes, but it's increasing our scholarship fund, and we're really excited.
And it's also providing an extraordinary opportunity for artists in a very public way, so it's.
And the kids will like it too.
Yeah.
Oh, it's going to be,
And I
but vote for mine.
Yeah.
Who are the other 5?
No, there's 12 total.
yeah.
Carlos Grasso, Pam Grau.
Oh, great.
I forget everybody.
Stephen
It's-
Edwards is doing one?
Yes, Stephen Edwards. It's going to be good.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay, sorry to interrupt. Go ahead, James, with your
That's
report,
fine.
please.
the only other item of note on that list is that the Topa Brewery project came in, and they submitted their, signed the acknowledgement, and noting that they'll submit the information for the public art program.
So they qualify?
We don't know that yet. So right now, basically they came in, they filled out the information, and then
Okay.
are going to submit their valuation.
So it's going to planning to find out if they qualify?
Well, they're preparing the valuation document, and I'm
Okay.
hearing that they're at 250,000 is
Okay.
what they're expected
So
to be.
it's,
So it's close. It's going to
Mhm.
be kind of borderline there.
okay.
Um,
It's okay, there's a lot
Let's move
going
forward.
on.
James, how about Boku?
Boku, there's been no movement on that, and it's just kind of where it is. That and Topa were the two that I was hoping would move forward, and Topa came in today, so might be happening in the next week or two. But anyway, so there's that. There was no change to the public art fund this month, so we'll keep that brief, and I think that's all I have. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, any other comments from commissioners? Marcy? Linda?
I have a question.
Yes, please.
I was doing this while we were talking, and there's about 4 people on here or 3 people I have no idea why they were giving it.
What's its lifetime achievement?
Yeah, Robert O. Brown,
Oh, yes,
Oh, Robert Brown?
he's an actor.
Yeah.
Is that O? I never knew it had a,
There's no
I know
O.
who he is. I didn't know he had a middle initial O. Is that who got it?
Neither.
Okay, that's it. I didn't realize he'd gotten one. And George Smart? I know there's a George Stewart, historical figures, but I've never heard of a George Smart.
Right.
No.
I think she's talking
Maybe
about.
I have no
Stewart.
idea. It's long before I was here. Yeah.
Oh, I don't
Okay.
know.
And Dosette, I got a feeling it was literary. Nobody knows that?
Which one are you asking?
And Dosette from 1990.
Looking, oh,
And Dorset. No, but I bet you can find it online.
Yeah, Robert, I don't know, because it wasn't online
I
then.
don't know.
Robert Enhart? Nobody? So I'll ask some people that were on the board,
Ask
were on the
people who are on the
commission.
commission
Yeah,
previously.
That's
Yeah.
good one.
but I've got all the other ones, so.
Okay, any other commissioner comments? Christine, anything from you? Christine Byrne?
Can I say a non-commissioner thing? Are we closing?
Sure.
Okay, so Ojai Studio Artists are having their newest exhibit at the Ojai Valley Museum, Scorched Souls, and the reception is March 10th from 5 to 6:30. Hope to see you all there.
Speaking of, hope to see you all there, Macbeth opens March 16th at the Art Center. I think you might want to come,
I think so.
because if you don't, we know where you live.
And I could plug the show at the Art Center that's there now,
Yeah. Yeah.
on Golden Pond is doing
Last
rave. Yeah, this is the last weekend. They've had rave reviews. And in the gallery, the main gallery, are the Weavers of the Singing Shuttle, who happen to be friends of mine, and they have some beautiful, beautiful, beautiful rugs, wall hangings. They actually have a horse blanket sample there that's incredible, a piece of art.
Is that what you're wearing? Is that one of theirs?
That's one of theirs, yeah.
Beautiful.
It's one of their more subtle ones, yeah. But they have some beautiful work, and I hope everybody, even if you aren't going to buy anything, you can still look, because it's amazing work.
And the jewelry's pretty darn good.
Oh, thank you.
Anything else? Then we are adjourned. Thank you all very much.
That was pretty good considering we had our reports.
Yes, very well. Yeah,
I'm
that was
glad
good.
you did that.
Oh, good.
So.
Well, it clarified and it
Yeah, we
opened up
can-
possibilities too.